like to call our meeting to order and ask that everybody join us in the pledge.
I pledge
Pledge
allegiance
allegiance
to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation,
under God,
under God,
one nation,
indivisible,
with
liberty
liberty
and justice for all.
liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Thank you. Roll call, please.
Sorry, guys, hold on. Roll call, Durante,
present.
Folks,
Present.
Rappaport,
Present.
Richards,
present,
Sharp,
Present.
Spizak,
Here.
Stachow,
Present.
Williams,
Here.
and Wilson.
Here.
We have a quorum, Chair.
Approval of minutes.
So moved. Support.
Motion by Commissioner Wilson, supported by Commissioner Spizak. Roll call.
We have to do a roll call for the minutes. Durante,
Yes.
Folks,
Yes.
Rappaport,
Yes.
Richards,
yes,
Sharp,
Yes.
Spizak,
Yes.
Stachow,
Yes.
Williams,
Yes.
and Wilson.
Yes.
9-0, the minutes are approved for June 2nd.
At this time, if there's anything that's not on our agenda, this would be the time to bring it up.
You may wish to amend the agenda at this time.
Okay. Commissioner Wilson.
If we are going to proceed with the meeting, I'd like to make a motion that case 2240 be moved to number 1 as opposed to number 4 to allow our participant to move on with his evening.
Support.
support,
Motion by Commissioner Wilson. I didn't see who supported that.
Rappaport.
Commissioner Rappaport. All in favor, say aye.
aye,
Any opposed?
Aye.
All right, so case number 224 will move to the number 1 spot. That's a special, it's a public hearing for special land use, 6552 Commerce Drive in the city of Westland. Mr. Ayub.
Yep. Just give me 1 second. I'm getting my slideshow in order here.
We apologize for throwing you the curveball.
It's okay. I'm going to share my video here.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I think it should be 1A.
1A?
Yes.
All right, we'll move it
And
to
then number 1.
right,
Are you guys
Very
ready?
good, sir.
Everyone see that?
Yes.
Yes.
So this is a request for special land use approval for an auto detailing facility. The property is located just south of Warren on the east side of Commerce Drive. The applicant proposes an auto detailing use in the vacant, in a vacant suite, approximately 1,700 square feet in this multi-tenant industrial building outlined in yellow. The property in its entirety comprises of about 1 acre and is zoned I-1 light industrial, which is appropriate for the auto detailing, and it is a special land use in that district. The petitioner proposes no exterior renovations to the building. The use will involve interior car cleaning services inside the vacant building. I discussed the use in detail with the applicant. There is no, the operation is not going to spill to the outside. There is a resident here, not impacted in a major way, especially if the use will be contained inside. I drove to the site and did some analysis. Parking is sufficient, screening is sufficient, access into and out of the site using this curb cut here is sufficient for the site. Again, it's a multi-tenant office-like industrial building that can accommodate this use. It's a special land use in this district. The administration does not have any issues with it and is recommending approval with the conditions that are in your packet. I'd be happy to read them and discuss them further if you'd like. That's all I got.
It's the recommendations on the three items there that would be included in the proposal. Is the petitioner there? Sir, are you here?
I don't know about that.
Ms. Muhammad Al-Mahdi,
Yes,
are you with us today?
Yes, sir.
He is.
Very good. If you have anything you wish to add, sir?
Nope.
You're
Actually-
good. Okay, we will open it up to the commission. Commissioner Spezak.
There are no questions. I'm ready to make a motion.
I
I have some questions.
Special land use.
Commissioner Rappaport, you have a question?
I do. My primary questions revolve around the exceptions in the administration's recommendation. I have specifically questions about item 2 and item 3 that I wanted to make sure were clear to us before we move forward. I'm not 100% certain what the definition of the term junked vehicle means, and I'd like to make sure that that's clarified. And on item 3, I'd like to understand what the administration is concerned about with regard to vehicle sales conducted from the site. If the administration is talking about in-person sales, I certainly understand their concerns. I'm kind of wondering how far that actually extends. If a portion of the sale can be conducted on premises, if online sales can be conducted on premises, it's just not as clear as I'd like it to be before we actually vote on it.
Sure, fair enough. I'll definitely answer those questions. But first, I kind of failed to give the applicant petitioner notice that these were going to be in there. Actually, I might have, but I'm not sure. But I would like to read them on the record just for his information if I fail to do that. And then I'll answer your questions if that's okay, Chair.
Thank you very much,
Very
Mo.
good.
Okay, so number 1, these are the conditions of approval. Number 1, all operations related to the auto detailing use shall be conducted wholly indoors. 2, no junked or inoperable vehicles shall be parked in the parking lot of the facility. Number 3, there shall be no vehicle sales conducted from the site as a result of this use. To answer Commissioner Rappaport's questions, number 3, the city does not want this to turn into a vehicle sales type scenario as an accessory use to the auto detailing facility. The city over time, before my time, has seen a plethora of auto uses along our major commercial corridors, even from an auto shop that would turn into an auto sales use as well, accessory to the approved auto shop. And in addition to that, some gas stations in town have also over time turned into auto sales facilities. So this way, this condition would allow us to go after them in a way that's recorded in the special land use approval instead of fighting back and forth with business owners, which we've had to do. Number 2, that's a good question. Junked, I don't have a definition for you. It would kind of be a subjective term that anyone in the administration would be able to interpret. Feel free to place some additional language in that. I don't have an answer. I could tell you how I would interpret it, though. Similar to inoperable, a vehicle that is so in disrepair that it cannot be driven or does not look like it should reasonably be placed at the site to be cleaned and used, I guess. I don't know. In short, that's what, without time to respond, that's what I would give you.
Mr. Rappaport, any further questions from you on this?
Maybe just one follow-up. Would it be fair to say that we are concerned with the term junked refers primarily to a refuse vehicle or a vehicle that is used primarily for the purpose of recycling its parts?
I think that's a majority of the concern. And also, in addition to that, comes a little bit of the sales part of the discussion, to where someone will buy an inoperable or vehicle that is maybe a salvage title that needs significant repair, that looks junked, and we'll end up fixing it and selling it. And we've actually had scenarios like this play out throughout the city in areas where this type of use was not permitted, and including the sales as an accessory.
Thank you very much. I'll cede the floor and leave the wording of that to the discretion of whoever does make the motion.
Mr. Alamati, do you understand those three, and are you in agreement with those?
Absolutely.
All right, very good, sir. Commissioner Wilson.
In reference to the residents behind this place, were those people notified, and is there anybody on for this concern? Because if this is a detailing shop, there should be no vehicles parked outside, period, overnight at all. I mean, you're just detailing the car.
Oh, overnight.
I mean, it's not like
Yeah.
you're replacing parts taken from one vehicle
No.
to another.
You know, we're just detailing. We're just detailing. There should be no vehicles at all. But if a customer is supposed to pick up his vehicle at 5 o'clock and we close at 6, and he can't make it,
We move it inside.
we either keep it inside, or if worst comes to worst, outside in the proper parking spot until the morning when he comes picks it up. But there will be no parking for like sales cars or anything. We're not willing to go over. It's actually in our lease, in our building lease. We are not going to be selling any vehicles or bringing any junk vehicles. Basically, a customer will bring his car, we clean it, and they pick it up and they leave. All as quiet and as clean as possible.
Okay. First question, are there any residents in attendance to this meeting tonight or this issue? Obviously not. Let's continue.
And they were notified.
Thank you. That's all I needed to know.
Okay, motion's in order.
Andy was
Mr.
making.
Spezak.
The Administration and Planning Department recommend that this petition be forwarded with a recommendation for granting special land use approval as the proposed use meets the special land use standards of the zoning ordinance, subject to the following conditions as read previously. Support.
We have to close the public hearing.
Point of order.
Oh, I'm sorry. Close the public.
This is
Public hearing.
a special. This is a special land use. Therefore, it's a public hearing.
I just closed it.
He just closed it. He did that, sir.
I'm sorry.
Is there support?
I support it.
That's motion by Commissioner Spezak. That's supported by Commissioner Folks. Roll call, please.
Roll call vote to approve the auto detailing facility at 6552 Commerce Drive as a special land use. Durante,
Yes.
Folks,
Yes.
Rappaport,
Yes.
Richards,
Yes.
Sharp,
Yes.
Spezak,
Yes.
Fatchow,
Yes.
Williams,
Yes.
and Wilson.
Yes.
I know the motion carries.
Very good, Mr. Alamati. Good luck when you go to City Council, and thank you for bringing your business to Westland.
Thank you so
Thank
much,
you,
everyone.
guys.
Appreciate it.
God bless.
All right, we will move into our original case number 1, which is case 2236 for the interpretation of use requesting plasma donation centers be permitted by right in the CB2 3 district. Mr. Ayub.
Thank you, Chair. I'm going to open this up fairly quickly to Michael because this is his item, or he's bringing this request forward. But I do want to say a couple things. First, I do have a PowerPoint presentation that Michael asked me to put up on the screen while I believe he's discussing his request, and that I also wanted to point out that zoning ordinance amendment that follows this case is also somewhat related. So if there's a need for me to discuss elements of that case. If you've had a chance to look it over, I'd be happy to do that during this discussion. Michael, I'll open it up to you. I will share my screen.
Great. Hey, great. Thank you very much, Mr. Ayub. I'm going to turn down our speakers here because getting some feedback. Everybody can hear me okay, though?
Yes.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Am I on camera, just so I know, or just my voice?
That's correct.
Okay. Yeah. So thank you, everyone. Again, my name is Michael Vogt, and I'm an attorney with the Dykema Law Firm. Coming to you this evening from our conference room in my office.
Michael,
Presenting on behalf of my client, Octa Pharma Plasma, as it pertains to their proposed plasma donation center at 353634 Ford Road. Now, more specifically, we're requesting that the proposed use of a plasma donation center be added to the list of uses that are permitted by right in the CB3 zoning district. And as I heard the members of the commission discuss before, although he's not on the microphone at the moment, I have Kerry Klisch, the Director of Facilities for Octa Pharma, and he is on the Zoom as well, and will be available to address any technical or operational questions that you might have that I might not be able to answer. Mr. Ayub, if you could move to slide 2, please.
Michael, if you could be so kind as to mute your speakers instead of just turning them all the way down, you still have echo.
Yes, I will. I'll just try and pay attention in case someone has a question. All right. Now, before we get into any talk about the ordinance or our request to have our use added to the permitted use list, I just wanted to tell you a little bit about Octa Pharma Plasma and our proposed facility. As referenced in our application materials, Octa Pharma is a U.S.-based company that now has, I believe, 112 facilities across 29 states. And what they do is they collect, test, and they supply blood plasma that's used, among other purposes, for the manufacturing of several life-saving medicines. Next slide, please, Mr. Ayub.
Still getting a big feedback.
And all of us have probably heard a good deal about plasma lately on the news as it's being collected from people who've recovered from COVID-19, and because their antibodies, which are found in plasma, might be able to help others suffering from coronavirus. In addition to that critical function, plasma donation is used to create all types of medicines for rare genetic and chronic diseases, just to name a few. And you can see there's a lot of other important uses here on the slide before you now. Next slide, please.
we're still getting that echo. It's kind of disturbing me. I don't know if it's disturbing anyone else, but
Yes, it is.
Yes, it's kind of hard to understand some of your words.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Oh,
Whoa.
That's worse.
it's your microphone.
Yeah, I hear the echo now too when I turn my speakers on. But it's the only way I can hear you. Okay, I'm gonna hit mute. Is it better now when I hit mute? Thumbs up.
Michael, if you're using a conference phone or a speaker phone, you're going to want to take it off of the speaker phone if possible and use the handset. That'll eliminate some of the echo.
I'm actually on my computer's audio. There's no.
In that case, then you need to move closer to your computer.
Okay.
The echo's coming from the room itself, the acoustics.
Okay, how about now?
That's good.
Significantly better. Thank you.
Better? Okay.
Yes.
All right, I will continue on. Not sure, hopefully you heard the last things I said, but if not, I'll answer any questions. Okay, on to this next slide. So in addition to playing a vital role in the production of medicines and other medical uses, Octa Pharma also has a tremendous economic impact on the communities in which it operates. I mean, notably, this one plasma donation center will create roughly 50 new jobs, and through those 50 or so new jobs, Octa Pharma is going to pay wages that in 1 year total more than $2 million. And in addition to the $2 million in wages paid annually, they're also pay out about $3.5 million in donation fees. So that comes to a total of over $5 million annually being funneled back into Westland's local economy. Next slide, please. Each of Octa Pharma's facilities are operated by professionally trained staff and in compliance with all local, state, and federal laws and regulations. Every facility is safe, clean, comfortable, and designed as a first-class medical facility, as you'll be able to see on the next slide here. We might have went 2 slides. I might have saw 2 jump there. Nope, I'm wrong. Sorry. So this slide just shows you some examples of the quality design and construction that goes into Octapharma's donation centers. Continue on. I think the second slide is more of the same. A few more interior shots and exterior shots. Okay. So, well, now that we have a better idea of what Octapharma is and what it is that they do, we can talk a little bit about the site from the zoning perspective. As you can see here, this property is a standalone structure, site of a former Rite Aid. It's located on the southeast corner of Ford and Wayne Road in the CB3 General Business Commercial Zoning District, which the ordinance provides. It permits uses that are a quote wide range of commercial business uses on sites where the existing pattern of high intensity thoroughfare oriented development is firmly established. I think it's fair to say that that description fits the location of this property. Next slide, please, Mr. Ayub. So when Octapharma's representatives first contacted the city about this proposed facility, we received a letter from the planning director, which you can see now on this slide. And while you can read the whole thing, for our purposes, it's the middle paragraph that's most relevant, where it states that the proposed use of a blood plasma donation center does not fit neatly into any listed zoning category, is hereby classified as a special land use in the CB3 General Commercial Business District. Now, everyone here is in agreement that plasma donation centers are not listed in any type of list of uses in the ordinance. However, the ordinance section 110-4.9 addresses this exact type of situation and allows the Planning Commission and ZBA some necessary flexibility in the ordinance. Next slide, please, Mr. Ayub. And you don't need to read this whole section from the ordinance, but the first sentence is what's important, where it says that unlisted uses such as this plasma donation center, quote, may be permitted upon a positive recommendation of the Planning Commission and a finding by the Zoning Board of Appeals that such uses are clearly similar in nature and compatible with the listed uses for that district. So it's this process that brings us here before you tonight. We're simply asking for a recommendation from this commission that the proposed use of a plasma donation center be added to the list of permitted uses in the CB3 district. And the reason that we ask is exactly what the ordinance allows. It's because this use is very similar to a myriad of uses that are permitted by right in the CB3 district, which was obviously set forth in detail in our application materials, where we provided a comparison of our use with all the numerous uses that are permitted by right. This section also describes the specific use characteristics that this commission and that the ZBA should consider. And those would include daily traffic generation, types of merchandise and services provided, types of goods produced, hours of operation, and aesthetic characteristics. And we took a detailed look at all of those characteristics in our application letter, but I'll just run through them very quickly here. Next slide, please, Mr. Ayub. So as for traffic generation, this facility will generate less traffic than the prior use at the property, which, as I mentioned before, was a Rite Aid. The reason we say that is because, for one, Octapharma will not be using the building's drive-through window, which obviously facilitates and generates a lot of traffic, and also because there's a much slower turnover of the people that are entering this building as compared to a Rite Aid, where plasma donors are typically in the building for 1 to 2 hours at a time, whereas we all know that we get in and out of Rite Aid much more quickly and with more frequency. As we detailed in our application materials, and is listed here on this slide, there are simply many uses permitted in the CB3 district that generate more traffic than a plasma donation facility would generate. And those would include the nearby Big Lots, hardware store, and multiple fast food and carry-out restaurants. So with regard to traffic generation, the proposed facility will create less, or at most I would say equal, daily traffic than these uses and all of the uses listed on the slide here. Next slide, please, Mr. Ayub. So the next use characteristic that this commission and the ZBA will consider and compare to other uses permitted by right are the type of services that Octapharma will provide. And while our operations are more detailed in our application material, and we're happy to answer any more specific questions you might have tonight, but speaking in broad strokes, when you compare the services that they perform, which are personal and medical in nature, they're very similar to the categories of services that are permitted in these use categories, like medical offices, outpatient clinics, as you can see here on the list on the slide. Next slide, please, Mr. Ayu. The next use characteristic to look at is maybe the most straightforward one. It's simply the hours of operation. As noted here on the slide, where we'll operate from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m., which is an earlier closing time than the prior use at this location, and generally an earlier closing time than most commercial uses permitted throughout CB3. Next slide, please. And the last characteristic for the commission and the ZBA to consider and for us to discuss is the aesthetics of the facility. As you can see from the slides that you saw earlier, as well as Exhibit A to our application letter, which had a number of images of our internal and external finishes. Octapharma prides itself on having both first-class operations and first-class appearance. And if you go to the next slide, please, you'll see more examples of Octapharma's exterior storefronts and signage, as well as their interior finishes, which are all first-class. So those are all of the use characteristics that the Commission and ZBA are asked to consider when looking at whether a plasma donation center should be added to the list of uses permitted by right. I believe the evidence in the record more than supports a finding that this proposed use is in fact similar and compatible with the other uses that are already permitted in the CB3 district. And we would ask for a recommendation from the Planning Commission in that regard this evening. And before I just have a slide or two left, but before we move on, I know the next agenda item here tonight is to consider adding plasma donation centers as a special land use in CB2, which is a more restrictive zoning district, and it may be appropriate there because it is more restrictive. But obviously, I don't believe that is the case for the CB3 district, and we're here tonight to request that this be deemed a permitted use in the CB3 district. If you could go to the next slide, please, Mr. Ayu. And this was just a quick note on that last point, really, because under your ordinance, it kind of very clearly categorizes what type of uses should be called special land use. And they're uses which, and I'll quote the material part, uses that propose a quote activity which under usual circumstances could be detrimental to other permitted land uses and cannot be permitted within the same district. Now, clearly, based on all the materials we've supplied and the information that we've supplied, where we compared our use to numerous uses permitted already in CB3, I don't believe it can be said that our use is detrimental in any way to other permitted uses. And I don't believe there would be a rational reason to conclude that it just cannot be permitted in CB3 district, but for some special conditions, which is what a special land use is, under, as I understand it, under your ordinance. In fact, we know that at some point in the not too distant past, the city did view plasma donation centers as a use permitted by right, even though that was in the more restrictive CB2 district. Next slide, please, Mr. Ayu. 2 more slides and I'll be out of here. This is just to my last point. After we submitted our, I'm sure you're probably all aware of this anyway, but after we submitted our materials back on June 5th, the city was able to confirm in its records that it had, in fact, approved another plasma donation center, CSL Plasma, pictured here, which is located on Ford Road. And as I mentioned, in the more restrictive CB2 zoning district, it was approved and approved as a use permitted by right, I believe by the prior planning director. And now, while Octapharma would, of course, have preferred to have been simply administratively approved as CSL Plasma was, I think the fact that the city previously determined that plasma donation centers was permitted by right in CB2 really demonstrates just how similar our proposed use is to many uses that are already operating and are specifically permitted by right in the CB3 district. Next slide, please. Last slide. So, In closing, and before I turn it over to answer any questions and I let Kerry offer any additional information that he might think the commission would like to hear, I just want to thank everybody for your attention. I tried to be as brief as I could, and we would greatly appreciate a recommendation from the commission to add the use of plasma donation center to the use of permitted uses and the list of permitted uses in the CB3 zoning district. Thanks.
Thank you, sir. Your partner there, Kerry, Clash, you wish to speak, sir?
I think Michael did a great job of outlining our business and what we can bring to the community. I'm here to answer any questions that anybody may have to at all on our business or anything to. I don't like to use the word educate you, but to educate you on plasma business or Octapharma plasma itself.
Okay, very good. This is a public hearing. Are there any folks that are on our cast here that wish to speak on this? Any citizens that wish to speak? Are there any citizens that wish to speak on this?
If you are a citizen who wishes to speak, you need to use the raise hand function.
I'm talking about citizens that are out. We don't have any citizens listed here, sir. Being a public hearing, but I see none. Mr. Ayub, do you have anything before I open it up to the commission?
Yeah, I think actually this might be a good time to respond and summarize some of the statements that are in my memo to you for the zoning ordinance modification that I'm requesting. First, I want to thank Michael for that explanation of what the use is. I did some digging and searching before he was able to send the PowerPoint over and the materials that he sent for the application. So definitely learned quite a bit about this. I'm going to hit on some points. Some of them may not seem like they're really relevant, but they will all come together at the end for you to better understand why the city's bringing forward this zoning ordinance modification to classify blood plasma donation centers as a special land use in the CB2 district. First, I want to start off by talking about the 2018 master plan that was a comprehensive rewrite of our previous master plan, again adopted in I don't know what month, but I believe it's September, the fall of 2018, and it lays out various zoning strategies and guidance of how the city should be zoning and not creating land uses, but approving and allowing land uses in its commercial corridor, specifically on the major thoroughfares that promote vibrant retail activities and life per se, similar to a downtown atmosphere, but not truly because of the amount of traffic, the type of traffic on our commercial thoroughfares. So that's one element that is kind of guiding the decision here in bringing this forward. And I would say the second is that the ordinance is, to say outdated would be misclassification of that. A majority of our ordinance hasn't been touched since the late 80s, some of it from the early 80s and some of it from the late 90s rather. And specifically because blood plasma donation centers are not classified is why we're bringing this forward. We believe that blood plasma donation centers are not medical clinic environments. They're more of a like a manufacturing for drug type uses where you withdraw the blood from a patient or a person and you will use that blood to create some sort of medicine or something like that. I'm not too familiar with the science, but that's really what the operation is kind of catered to. And it doesn't really draw a retail or a retail type environment, which is what the CB3 and all of the other commercial districts are asking for. The petitioner brought up daily traffic generation and that it's very, very low in terms of what other commercial uses will generate. And that's not necessarily a good thing. We want traffic in our commercial areas. We want people to come in and come out and visit our commercial corridor. We also want some of the services provided. Again, our medical offices and retail in all of these commercial corridors. And I'm not seeing this as a medical type office environment, specifically because of the activity with withdrawing the blood and using it to create some sort of medicine. The hours of operation closing at 7 p.m. While that may sound good, it's not in a commercial sort of environment where you want businesses to be active and open and lively, catering to the crowd that wants to come in and spend money in your commercial corridors. And aesthetics, it did look okay on the PowerPoint slides that were shared, but it just creates a dead storefront. There's no real live activity going on, especially for a commercial type environment. Those are some of the things. There's some others that I'm going to quickly summarize through. So we've been undergoing some piecemeal zoning ordinance amendments throughout the past several months, and this stems because we're not able to comprehensively pay for a zoning ordinance amendment in its entirety up at one time, so we're piecemealing it all together. That's why you're seeing several zoning ordinance amendments come through. So that's why we're bringing this one forward to you. And finally, it is true that Bruce Thompson, the former planner, did approve this administratively, but the fact that the guiding principle of our community, the comprehensive master plan, was not adopted, or the fact that a new master plan was adopted after the fact with different guiding principles for our commercial corridors should guide us in a way to comply with those principles. That's one big fact. And the second is that to treat these as a medical clinic would be, I think, a stretch of the definition of what a medical office would be. So I'll leave you with that. Those are some of the concerns that I had in my memo to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ayub. We will open it up to the commission at this time for questions and concerns, for motion. Any questions or concerns? Commissioner Rappaport.
Actually, I'll cede the floor to Commissioner Spisak if he wishes to speak before I do.
Yes, thank you very much, Mr. Rappaport. It appears to me that this particular location is a fairly good location for what these folks want. But I have I'm of the opinion that the ordinance should be passed prior to the time we give them the okay to go here. I think they'll make a fine business. It's a very good location for them to put what they want, and I think it will go good. But I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Rappaport and see what he's got to say.
Commissioner Wilson. Then I'll get back to you, Commissioner Rappaport.
Oh, I'm perfectly willing to wait my turn. I have quite a bit to say on this.
Commissioner Wilson.
Okay, I just have a couple of questions. What makes this plasma center different than CSL, which is already in existence right down the street? Are you paying your donors? And won't this put them in direct competition with CSL and the American Red Cross?
No, we do not. I can hear you. I'm getting some feedback there. we're not in competition with American Red Cross. American Red Cross is, the people who donate plasma do not donate blood. Two complete different people. They are not in competition. As far as what makes us different from CSL or why would we be in competition, it's the same as having a Walgreens
and a Rite Aid right across from each other, or anything along that lines.
I can't understand a thing.
Can they turn the microphones?
Getting an awful big feedback, Mr. Bach.
You guys hear me?
Can you turn the speakers away from the microphone?
It's on the. Here, hit mute on yours for a second, Carrie.
Well, I'm muted.
Your speakers. Okay. Can you guys hear me? Okay.
Yeah.
No.
Okay. I'll summarize real quick what Kerry was saying. He said, you know, they're not a direct competitor with Red Cross. The blood donation versus plasma donation are not the same.
No. My question was, are you going to be in direct competition with CSL?
With regard to that, yeah. And the point that Kerry made was that would be no difference than if a Walgreens had opened up on the kitty corner from where this Rite Aid used to be, or, you know, Burger King comes down the street from McDonald's. It's just normal business competition. But you're right, those are competitors.
And the other question that Commissioner Wilson had, are these donors paid by your company to donate?
Yes. So annually, $3.5 million from our typical facility will be paid directly in donor payments to community members every year.
That breaks down to approximately how much money per pint?
How much? I'm asking Carrie.
It varies. So I think maybe if you mute, I think that might be the muted. All right. Is that better?
No. Okay.
So yes, the donors get compensated for their time, and it varies on similar to gas stations in competition. When one gas station lowers their prices, the other one lowers theirs. Similar to we're paying donor fees and CSL is paying donor fees, and they fluctuate, but it could be upwards of $50 a donation, and the donors are compensated on a pre-charged card. So when they're done donating, as soon as they walk out the door, that card is already charged with the money. They already have their money when they step foot out the door. They're going and they're paying cell phone bills. They're getting gasoline. They're getting groceries. They're shopping in the area. Our statistics show that about 80% of donor fees are getting funneled right back into the local community.
I think I just have an issue with that, paying these donors, because my experience and the history that I know of, the donors, they're getting paid and they're going out and buying drugs. That's what most donors do. They don't
I'm sorry that you have that opinion, but our donors are not coming and donating plasma and then going buying drugs. I mean, that's not our donors.
Okay.
Well, I have a question in regards to, you mentioned the $5 million mark. Is that what you anticipate for the city of Westland, or is that for the entire United States?
No, that's per donation center. So we would, each donation center is between donor fees and employee wages, it's over $5 million a year. So this particular donation center right here would be about $5 million. We spend about a little over about 1.3 million just in the build out, just in the building before we even do anything. Then we're going to spend an additional about 900,000 to $1 million on outfitting. So before we've even opened the doors, we are well into it, and we're there long term. We want to be there for a long time. Our donor centers get involved in the community. Each year, each donor center at least once per year, do either a coat drive, food drive, something for the community to become part of the local Chamber of Commerce, and they are part of the community. We hire local. The employees are local. The donors are local. We become part of the community.
All right, I have just one more statement to make, and then I'll relinquish the floor.
We're good.
Although I would love to see something come up on that corner, that Rite Aid building, because it has been vacant and empty for so long. I just have a small problem with how many donators or donations you plan on retrieving over, say, 6-7 months, and how this is going to come back to the city. But other than that, okay, I'm good. Thank you.
Thank you. I just need clarification on my question, Mr. Vogt. That 5 million, is that your total cost for your renovations, everything, or is that the money that you expend each year paying the donors, 5 million?
Oh, that is what is getting between donor fees and employee wages. That's where that 5 million comes from.
That has nothing to do with your renovations then?
Correct. That has nothing to do with the renovations and outfitting.
All right. Thank you for your clarification.
The question. I got a question.
Commissioner Draney.
Yeah, is this a for-profit or a non-profit organization?
No, it's for profit.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Folks?
My question is on donor fees. What exactly do you mean by that? Is that where you sell the plasma to hospitals?
No, this is when the donor donates their plasma, they get paid for their time. So they get plasma, which is it's about a liter of plasma, and that's what the donor fees is the fee that gets paid to them.
Now, what about what do you do with it once you've collected it? Do you send it to hospitals, or do they pay for it, or?
No, we don't send it to hospitals. No, we're procurement, so we procure the plasma. It's frozen, and after it goes through testing and makes sure it's good plasma, it is shipped overseas to our parent company, who has fractionization plants to make the medicines that treat everything from hemophilia, AIDS patients, women's Rh factor when the blood type is not compatible with the mothers. They make a medicine for that so she can have a healthy baby. We do rabies vaccines and many other medicines for diseases you've never even heard of. And it's shipped globally to over 100 countries around the world.
My other question is, I'm just concerned that once this gets out, if this is all approved and you actually move in for business, we're going to get a lot of feedback from residents, just like we did from the other facility, about that we're just paying drug addicts, like Commissioner Wilson indicated. We get a lot of talk about that.
Commissioner Adam Stackhouse, you got a question?
No.
No? Okay. I see no other questions. Commissioner Rappaport.
Thank you for saving me for last. I have quite a few things to say on this matter. Mostly I feel like my services on the committee are needed due to the fact that we brought our own attorney. That's me. So first of all, I'd like to commend Michael. The presentation is very lawyerly, well put together. And I'd like to commend the petitioner. There's no question or argument that the client's business has value to add to our community. And it does appear that they've executed their argument very well. It does appear that they conduct their business very, very well. The question, honestly, before this board isn't whether this particular applicant is a good applicant or a good addition to our community at this time. The question before us is, in fact, whether we should include blood plasma collection centers like this into our as of right usage. And I would argue that it should not. Because while if we answer the question in favor of this applicant, we may be answering the question in favor of an applicant that is less deserving. So I'll go a little bit further, and I'll remind everybody on the board before they vote and before they consider their votes, that this is not site plan approval. How we vote on this is a matter of how we actually look at these matters in the future. It is not whether we approve of this specific case or not, which is very different from what we normally do. Right now, we're just trying to figure out if blood plasma collection facilities, regardless of how well they've been presented to us, are entitled to consideration as of right, or if we should be considering them as a special land use. Now, when we consider things as a special land use, we have a number of things that we have the ability to do, or that happens that doesn't normally happen. With a request as of right, with a petition as of right, the petition comes to us as not a public hearing, which means the public does not actually technically have the right to be heard on their approval or disapproval of the use. Now, the way that we normally do things in this commission, and my general appreciation to Commissioner Sharp for his good policy of making sure that even on non-public hearings that the public is heard, which is one of our major functions. But there could come a time, if we approve this as of right, that the public would be cut out of these sort of being able to weigh in on these sort of decisions. And to be perfectly frank, as Director Ayub pointed out earlier, we are currently looking into redefining a lot of these definitions as of right now. So it could be that while Michael has made excellent arguments based on the definitions as we have them, the definitions as we have been working with, that are written down, are not exactly the way that we've been working with our definitions, and they're not currently in line necessarily with our master plan. For example, if you note a number of the situations that we do require special land use, they almost all inclusively involve some sort of a licensing or special permits that would require us to have some level of heightened scrutiny. Now, this would fall under a case where it is a function that does in fact have some level of heightened scrutiny, and it would behoove us to consider the possibility that it is better to list this as a special land use, so that we would have the opportunity to have that extra scrutiny. Just simply naming it a special land use doesn't mean that we're going to deny it. It means that we just want to take a closer look at it. And I think that most of us could possibly agree that this would be a use that we would want to have a pretty close look at. And that's exactly what the administration seems to be suggesting. Now, directly addressing the similar uses, medical and outpatient uses involve somebody coming in with a medical malady. That's not going to be the case here. People will be coming to this business because they have a desire for money and extra blood plasma, presumably, to donate. It is also unique from a laboratory in that they will have people coming in. They're not necessarily going to be exclusively doing chemical testing, etc. Now, to be perfectly fair to Michael's argument, a lot of these permitted uses that are permitted as of right, they do similar things to them, but that does not necessarily mean or lead to the conclusion that the blood plasma donation use is similar to those uses. Barber and beauty shops involve people coming in and acquiring a change to their visage. It's clearly a different sort of activity than would be going on at a blood plasma donation shop. Gymnasiums don't require special land use, but I do believe that our massage salons and public baths do. And I see our planning director nodding his head. Is that correct? Am I correct in believing that that massage salons and public baths require special land use?
As of yesterday evening, yes. The ordinance was finally adopted last night at last night's council meeting, yes.
Which is, thank you very much, which is in line with what I was suggesting. Those sort of uses are uses that we just simply want to have a heightened level of scrutiny. And when we do finally adjust our definitions, I would strongly recommend that that the licensure and just simply making sure that we have the oversight, enough oversight to require that a petitioner come in on a special land use and prove that they have the correct licensure would be of a minimal amount of oversight that we should be doing in our role as a recommending body. Now, you take a look at other similar uses that are in fact special uses, such as pharmacies and tattoo parlors. These are also similar uses, but they require special land use from us because we have decided that these should have a heightened level of scrutiny. So another issue is that another issue in making this distinction of use is that the Blood Plasma Donation Center is suggesting a payment plan, which means that they're less medical in theory and more like a processing center. They're processing in people, which is a raw resource. They're removing a portion of that raw resource, and they're producing a product, which is blood plasma. Now, that particular use defined that way is absolutely, and to borrow a little bit of, to be very respectfully borrow a little bit of Michael's rhetoric, is clearly different than the listed uses as of right. So I want to make it very, very clear as I'm making my arguments that I hold no animosity towards the petitioner, their business, or even their request. I just happen to disagree with it. I think that that the administration has the right attitude, that that we should be cautious and careful, more cautious and careful about what we do, and giving us the ability to review these petitions if we see any more than just the one currently before us as a special land use gives us a better chance to consider very carefully who and what we're allowing as far as businesses to exist in our community. So this body makes decisions or recommendations, to be perfectly clear, based on the welfare and the impact to the community. We really honestly do not care about the financial gain that that the city will actually gain. And we shouldn't really be making our decisions based on how much money that the proposal will add to the city. That's the job of the administration. That's not our job. We're citizens, and our body is made up of citizens for a reason. And the reason is to make sure that we're making decisions based on the best interests of our community. That being said, and if there are no continuing commentary or responses to my unfortunate diatribe, I do have a motion.
Very good, sir. Make your motion.
At this time, I'd like to move to send case number 2236, interpretation of use, to the Zoning Board of Appeals with the following advice and conclusions. Number one, the proposed use is sufficiently distinct from listed uses. Number two, proposed use is properly a special land use under the current master plan's guidelines. Number three, use as of right does not indicate a need for heightened scrutiny of use, which is not the present case. Number four, petitioner relies on listed uses for similarity comparisons, but the administration is currently in the process of reviewing those definitions. Number five, no plain and clear language obviates petitioner's argument, despite the petitioner's claim otherwise. Six, it is our opinion that setting this use as a special use and requiring heightened administrative and community attention provides the most protection and accountability for all interested parties until such time as our admittedly dated zoning ordinance may be revised. It is therefore our determination to deny the interpretation of petitioner and recommend that such use is a permissible special land use within CB2 and CB3 zones.
Commissioner Spezak. You support Commissioner Spezak?
Yes.
Motion by Commissioner Rappaport, supported by Commissioner Spezak. Roll call, please.
I know, but that's kind of odd.
Support.
Is it possible to make a comment before the vote, just in response, or I didn't know what protocol was, but I can't stand up, so and say I want to talk. So
I have no problem with you making a comment before the vote.
Thank you, Chairperson. I appreciate that. Really, I just wanted to quickly address a couple of David's points. Similarly, I think he did a fine job on your behalf of stating the commission or the city's positions on these issues. The couple of things I wanted to note from Mr. Ayub and Mr. Rappaport's comments were that there's a lot of talk about changes that will be made to the ordinance and considerations that are being made to how the ordinance changes and how definitions, while they may be written one way, have been perhaps treated or perceived a different way in the recent past by the city's boards and commissions. But as Mr. Rappaport will confirm, the ordinance, as it's written, still has to be applied, even if tomorrow or there are great changes in store and the whole thing's going to be rewritten. The fact of the matter is, the points that we raise are CSL plasma came in when the ordinance was the same. I get it, the master plan has changed, but the ordinance was the same. And they weren't just approved as a special land use. They were approved by right in the CB2, which is more restrictive. So what we're asking for today is just for the ordinance to be really interpreted similarly by just saying that CB3, which is which is less restricted and allows a much wider range of commercial businesses, to allow the same things that were allowed in CB2 by right. And when you get down to comparing the use characteristics, going in to the doctor's office, or you don't do the same thing at the plasma center, and going to the barber shop, you don't do the same thing as the plasma center. But what the ordinance says is that the commission and the ZBA are supposed to look at the use characteristics, not the use specifications. You're kind of looking at how many people come in and out in an hour, how busy is the parking lot, how late did they stay open, Do they create noise? Do they create order? Are they a nuisance? You know, these are the use characteristics that they actually listed. They said, look at the aesthetic. They said, look at the traffic. You know, they didn't say, you know, is the caliber of person that would be utilizing this place, are they a drug addict? You know, or do, you know, which is, I get that people have their, you know, notions about places and how they operate, and they have their experiences to draw from. I get that, but we're not that. So, I mean, to get lumped in, I just want to make it clear for the record that we're simply asking that the ordinance, while it may change in the future, that it be interpreted the same way that the city interpreted it when a direct competitor with a similar use came in a few years ago in a more restrictive zoning district, was permitted as a use by right. You know, I understand the vision of the master plan. I understand all of the comments and the questions that have been raised here, but I do feel like the ordinance, the way it's written here today, and with the mechanism put in place for applicants like ourselves to say, hey, our use is just like all these permitted uses. The fact that that's there, it should be used. It should be applied as it was written. And again, appreciate all the time and allowing me this extra couple minutes to make our case. Thank you very much.
You're welcome, sir. Roll call vote, please.
I'd actually like to quickly respond. It'll only take 90 seconds.
You take what you need, sir.
And I did respond about the characteristics a little bit, but in terms of when are we going to actually classify this use and what was it classified previously by the previous planning director? I mean, it is true. Obviously, Bruce classified this as a permitted by right use, but when are we able to say, hey, we need to revisit this? I mean, forget that we just went through a master plan amendment, comprehensive amendment in 2018 that changes the landscape of this also, but that doesn't necessarily pave the way for all of these other potential blood plasma donation clinics to come into the city and say, hey, look, you approved CSL plasma. Hey, look, you approved Octapharma. That's not what we want to do here. We're trying to get a closer look at these facilities. We're not saying no to you, but we're saying that we want to have an opportunity to have a closer look at this, hold a public hearing. And I think it's in the city's best interest to classify this as a special land use, specifically because it doesn't obviously, it's not a medical office. It's just not by definition and by classification. So while yes, it is also a drug manufacturing sort of facility, one can make that argument. We also don't think it's reasonable to put it in the industrial district. So we're kind of compromising here. I didn't want to do that in terms of the industrial classification. So the city is trying to compromise with you in allowing these. Originally, we were going to go with the CB3 district, but I think it's more than fair to classify them in the CB2 district where previously Bruce had allowed them. So that's all I can say about your argument in terms of moving forward and locking the city in with Bruce's interpretation back in 2017 before a master plan amendment and before specifically in detail understanding what this use actually is. And that's all I got to say.
And if I may be permitted before we take a roll call vote, I wanted to be very clear for my colleague Michael. I want to be very clear. If this were to come up to me on a special land use petition, I would be generally in favor of it. But the point that I'm trying to make and ultimately trying to convey to everyone here is that I feel that we are doing our best job when we're taking closer looks at uses similar to the one that's currently before us. So with that, I will cede the floor and I will speak no more.
Very good. Roll call, please.
Okay, this is going to be a roll call vote to recommend denial to the Zoning Board of Appeals for the use interpretation request to permit by right in the CB3 blood plasma donation centers. Roll call vote. Durante?
Yes.
Folks?
Yes.
Rappaport?
Yes.
Richards?
Turn off your mute.
Richards, are you, I don't know, he might.
I'm
he
so
might be
sorry,
mute.
yes. Yes, I am so
Okay.
sorry.
Sharp,
Yes.
Spizak,
Yes, and I hope they come back.
Stachow,
Yes.
Williams,
You gotta unmute, he is.
On mute.
wake up, Williams.
Yeah, I think he was muted.
Okay, are you opposed to the motion or in favor of the motion?
I'm opposed.
Opposed to the motion, okay. And then Wilson.
Yes, and I hope they come back too.
Okay, 8-1, the motion carries.
I'd like to thank Mr. Vaught and Mr. Place for all their explanations, and we're not saying you have a bad operation. And like it expressed, there are certain things that it's not you, but there's other people that could very well follow you that need a lot more closer look. So
Understood.
we're going to move on to case 2238, which is a public hearing for the proposed ordinance amendments to Chapter 110 entitled Zoning, modifying the use list to classify plasma donation centers as special land uses in the CB 3 and 2 districts. Mr. Ayu.
I'm not going to go into detail describing my memo here, but we're actually calling this out, this use blood plasma donation centers, and placing it in the zoning ordinance as a special land use in the CB2 district, which will also allow it as a special land use in the CB3 district.
This is a special hearing. Are there anyone in our listening audience that wishes to speak on this? Anyone in our listening audience? Michael, did you wish to speak? Mr. Vogt?
Oh, no, I'm not. I'm just observing. Thank you.
Okay, very good. A motion is in order. If there, we'll turn it over to the commission for comments, questions. Commissioner Rappaport.
Very briefly for a change, I'd just like to reiterate my my comments during the last item. It's for those reasons I do believe that that the commission has the responsibility and honestly the right to review these cases on a case-by-case basis, and to just simply make sure that that we do our due diligence and observe the petitioners a little bit more closely.
Thank you, sir. Any other comments? Motions in order? Anyone wish to make a motion?
I'll make the motion, but what am I making it on? I mean,
That this 2238 list classified plasma donation centers as a special land use in the CB district. And this is a public hearing, so. Read case number 2, Commissioner Spizak.
Yes.
Just to modify the list to classify plasma donation centers as a special land use in the CB district.
okay, I thought I said that. That's fine. Hang on a second.
Yes, sir.
I got it right here somewhere.
Andrew, I think I can take care of this if you want to see the form.
Go ahead there, Mr. Rappaport. It's all right.
Very good then. At this time, I'd like to close the public hearing. We have the normal rules. So in case number 2238, public hearing for proposed ordinance amendment to Chapter 110 entitled Zoning, modifying the use list to classify plasma donation centers as special land uses in CB3 and CB2 zoning districts for the city of Westland, to the city council for its approval.
Support.
Motion by Commissioner Rappaport, supported by Commissioner Spizak. Roll call, please.
Roll call vote to approve the zoning ordinance amendment as proposed. Durante,
Yes.
Folks,
Yes.
Rappaport,
Yes.
Richards,
Yes.
Sharp,
Yes.
Spizak,
Yes.
Stachow,
Yes.
Williams,
Yes.
Wilson.
Yes.
9-0. Motion carries.
Thank you, thank you. We'll move into our next case, which is also public hearing, case 2239, public hearing for proposed ordinance amendment to chapter 110, entitled zoning for parking requirements. Mr. Ayub.
Okay, thanks, Chair. This one's really quick. We are proposing modifications to the list of parking requirements in the zoning ordinance. Each use category has its own requirement for parking. We are only focusing on the office uses, and there's two different types of classifications for uses, and this does not have anything to do with the blood plasma donation centers. The first set of office buildings or uses are professional offices and business offices, architects, engineers, attorneys, and professionals like those. And currently the parking requirement is 1 per 200. We're proposing 1 per 250. And the other sort of uses are those medical and dental offices. And that is currently way too high at 1 per 100. We're proposing 1 per 200. The professional and business office would probably stay where it's at, but for redevelopment purposes, we thought it would be beneficial to lower that a bit and avoid potential ZBA unneeded cases in the future. And then professional, medical, and dental offices, it's honestly absurdly high, and 200 is a good fit. So we're proposing that modification also to immediately help some businesses, prospective businesses in the pipeline for medical and both dental. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Wilson.
So this is for all new development. What's out there now is out there now.
Correct.
All right. Now there's one under industrial also that on my sheet that I received is highlight going from 200 to 250.
Good catch. Good catch. So that portion of the industrial, so industrial facilities are huge, right? They might include warehousing, they might include break rooms, they might include offices. So this portion is only impacting the office square footage of a potential industrial case. And with the changes here specifically to the offices in the office district, not only will it help people that are not able to comply with the parking requirement because of smaller sized parcels throughout town that are not occupied or developed, but it will also help people that want to redevelop parcels include additional landscaping as opposed to unnecessary behavior that require significant costs for maintenance over time. So there's some hidden benefit to doing this.
Okay, thank you.
No problem.
This is a public hearing. Are there any folks in our listening audience that wish to comment on this? Any folks in our listening audience that wishes to comment? I see none. Motion is in order. Commissioner Wilson.
I'm prepared to make a motion to close the public hearing and waive the normal rules and send case number 2239 to the City Council with a recommendation of approval for the purpose of modifying the off-street parking requirements.
Support.
Motion by Commissioner Wilson. I think that's supported by Commissioner Williams. Is that correct?
Correct.
Yes. Roll call, please.
Roll call vote to recommend approval of the proposed ordinance as written. Durante?
Yes.
Folks?
Yes.
Rappaport?
Yes.
Richards?
Yes.
Sharp?
Yes.
Spizak?
Yes.
Stachow?
Yes.
Williams?
Yes.
And Wilson?
Yes.
Commissioner Ayub, do you have anything else you wish to bring before us?
How about the adjournment?
Well, yeah, I want to thank everybody for their patience and indulgence in all of this, and maybe one day we'll get back to City Hall, and nobody will recognize us by the time we get there, but motion is in order to adjourn. Who's gonna
Support.
move?
Or, yes.
Stay safe.